Dr. Buzz Aldrin was part of the Apollo 11 mission and walked on the moon on July 20, 1969. He is a pre-boomer and will share some of his experience with us, along with his exciting vision of future space travel and his thoughts about being a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Buzz Aldrin.
I'm very, very happy to join this crew, this meeting, this discussion, reminiscing or whatever about the past, the present, and the future for a group of mature people that I think can and should be very influential because of the growing experience, the growing impact of the experience that new seniors or whatever terminology pre-boomers may have. I think we're a dwindling lot, but I think our impact can be very significant.
Well, you know, one thing before going on to the question, some of the questions, is that, you know, this is the first year, 2010, that all the pre-boomers are 65 plus. But you know who's joining us next year? The first of the boomers, and they're 76 million strong. So they're going to join with our 30 plus million, and we will really be a force, I believe, to be reckoned with. I hope you agree.
Well, we're going to welcome those new members and see if we can't indoctrinate them into the maturity of us sage individuals.
Well, that's speaking for yourself being sage, Buzz. Anyway, everybody asks you this question, but it's still on everyone's mind because I remember that day. It's July 20th, 1969. You stepped onto the surface of the moon. What was going on through your mind, and how did you feel physically and emotionally at that time?
Well, you're right. Many people do ask a question similar to that. What was it like? What did you feel? What was going through your mind? and the people who ask the questions usually don't have a tremendous familiarity with the build-up. Now, I was selected in 1963, 2 years after the president declared the moon as an objective, as a challenge, and all of my thinking since then, up until 1969, were thoughts about, gee, if I'm fortunate enough to get to the moon, this is really going to be a crowning place in my career. And then as things got closer and closer, I was involved in the last Gemini flight, November 66, saddened by the fire, Apollo 1 fire that took the life of my very good friend, Ed White, class behind me at West Point, and a fighter pilot. But then the way things worked out, why Neil Armstrong and I happened to be on the backup crew for the flight that was shifted around, and it became the first flight, Apollo 8, to go to the moon, and they stirred the public by reading from Genesis, Christmas Eve, 1968. Well, shortly thereafter, the crew of Apollo 11 was named to include Neil Armstrong, Mike Collins, and myself. And if the next two missions, testing the lunar module in Earth orbit, and then in a dress rehearsal in lunar orbit in Apollo 10, then we'd be given the opportunity of making the first attempt to successfully land on the moon. Well, things unfolded in the most beautiful way, and but we have been thinking about being on the lunar surface for 5 or 6 months. In fact, that we stood a very good chance, 60%, of successfully landing and carrying this out, and then a couple of a month, 6 weeks, why it was finally determined that that the commander, Neil Armstrong, would be the first one to step on the moon. And of course, along with that came the obligation or necessity of him making some, of Neil making some prophetic or lasting historical observation. Well, I didn't have that hanging over my head, so when I followed Neil onto the lunar surface, I wouldn't say it was anticlimactic, but Neil had already made that symbolic first step. And I say symbolic because clearly the purpose of Apollo was to land successfully. Actually, the president didn't say anything about walking on the moon, and we would have considered it a success if we landed successfully, because it would have allowed later flights to do more fulfilling things out on the lunar surface with rovers, and if we landed on the moon, we could land on other objects.
Right.
Well, anyway, I'm coming down the ladder, and at the bottom of the ladder, both of us wanted to jump back up to the bottom step to see how easy or difficult that was, because after being out in a while, we had to do that to get back in the cabin. Well, when I jumped up, I missed. I didn't. I underestimated the lunar gravity, so I didn't jump high enough. So within the next several seconds, I'm putting my foot on the moon, and then people are asking me what was going through my mind. Well, specifically, it was first thing I had to do in the moon. I failed, and it was sort of a blow to my ego, my sense of confidence. And I think I've revealed to some people that I chose that moment at the beginning of our walking on the moon to test out the urine collection device system within the spacesuit. So as I paused to do that and check my balance, what was I thinking of? Well, what comes next? I hope that the rest of this walking around, exploring, doing what we set out to do is going to go successful. That was what was going through my mind, really. Not the wonderful philosophical meaning. I did have the opportunity several seconds or minutes later to put two words together, magnificent desolation,
Right.
which I'm very proud of because it was extemporaneous, and it encompassed the idea of the progress of humanity over the centuries and centuries of looking up at the moon, and here we have progressed to the point with airplanes, jet airplanes, rockets, satellites, doing up things with humans in orbit, and now here we are, the two of us, walking on the surface. What a magnificent tribute to the progress of humanity. And yet I looked out on the lunar surface and saw such a desolate scene, just absolutely, totally lifeless, with a black sky, not a nice blue sky, sunny. The sun was out, no stars were visible, the horizon curved away, the color was just uniform gray, except for the angle that the sun was impacting on it, and the dust was kind of unique in its mysterious way of forming a boot print, just very precise, but then kicking up and coming back to the surface. It was a preoccupied mental state that we were in, and that is, what are we doing next? We got to get a lot of things done.